Hello and welcome to part 3 of my little series on setting up a craft business or making a bit of money out of your hobby. And I thought today I'd talk about what to make. What I want to pick up today are a couple of items, and the first I thought I'd have a quick sort of mention about is skills, looking at your own skills and how you can use that in deciding what to make. And then the other thing I thought I'd talk about a bit is my experiences with custom work and batch production. Because again, I think that's a fairly fundamental decision you need to make fairly early on. Do you want to do custom work or batch work? Making several of an item as in batch, or just doing one-offs as in custom. Anyway, let's just think skills first of all. I think some people say, oh, I'm a bit sort of nervous about putting my craft out there because I've not been doing it very long and I'm sort of worried about how it will be perceived. And I think that's a very valid and genuine concern, because the last thing you want to do is put something out there on the market which isn't, good, or ideally the best of its kind. So I think the way around it though is to become very good at one particular thing. You don't have to be master of everything. So, taking an example of pottery, if you can become very good at making nice mugs with a nice attractive glaze and maybe with a local scene or something on them, and just perfect and perfect and perfect, you'll have a product ready for market. If you try and start doing a dinner service, you'll probably be stretching beyond your capability at a point in time, and it's not necessarily such a good way to go. And it's the same with most things. You can become very good at doing one particular thing, and then you can get a reputation for doing that thing really well. I've seen people, going back to pottery again, get very good at a particular kind of glaze, and then they find there's a niche market. If it's a glaze that was used around about the 1600s, so suddenly you've got a reenactors market or something like that. But you can find little specialist niches if you become really good at one particular thing. I've seen people get really good at making one-off bespoke leather items like taxi disc holders. So that's what they'll do. They'll be the go-to person to supply taxi license disc holders or shotgun license holders, but something where you can perfect and perfect and perfect and become really good at what you do. So I suppose what I'm trying to say here is don't be put off by feeling you don't have a full range of skills. You don't have to be someone who can make everything to have a go at one thing and do it really well. So that's, if you like, skills, and don't be put off, basically. The other one I wanted to talk about was custom work and batch production. And I think it's fairly important if you're doing craft. You may be quite clear in your own mind already. There's no way you want to do batch production. So, you don't want to be turning out 10 glass baubles or whatever at a time. You want to do one-offs, and I think that's all fine, but I think your approach needs to be different if that is the case, because you need to gear yourself up for doing one-off items and doing them as efficiently and as effectively as you can. And there are a lot of people doing that and making a great success of it. What some people I notice do is they do a slight hybrid. They're sort of supposedly doing one-off items, but actually they have like a drop-down menu of options. So I've noticed it with watch straps in particular. People offer 3 or 4 different colours of leather for watch straps. They'll offer 2 or 3 different colours of thread combination, and perhaps a couple of buckle options. And then immediately you've got, around about, 30, 40 different options with that sort of approach. But as far as your customers, they're getting sort of a choice of, great variety, and it's pretty well like having unique one-off production. From your point of view, as the maker, it means you're just having to select, okay, that buckle, that thread, that bit of leather. And you can apply that same sort of thinking to a lot of other crafts where you have like 3 or 4 almost like drop down menus or pro forma, and you can quickly narrow down. So what may appear to be one-off bespoke work, actually in effect you can just chuck it into a batch and it becomes a sort of semi-batch production. And I've seen that work well. I think the mistake I made, and I think it was a mistake really, although I'll qualify this, when I set out I started doing a lot of tool covers, and I in particular did quite a lot of axe covers, and they're all slightly different, so they all became slightly bespoke projects. And it took quite a lot of time actually sort of measuring up, getting the modelling of the axe head right, particularly where you had things like different thicknesses of axe, and I had to take account of that. And applying that same sort of thing to, say, weaving or whatever, if you're having to actually alter your patterning or your colouring, or your different widths of what you're weaving, you're adding quite a lot of complication. And one of the things that it took me a while to realise is the cost of discussing requirements with your customer. I found very often when I was doing a bespoke item, there'd be like 10, 20 emails buzzing to and fro. I'd say, how about this? And the customer would say, oh, I'd like a bit more like that, and then a bit more, and boom, 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 boom. And you're trying to agree, and come to understand what your customer wants. And then you're working out the price and sorting all of that out. But you can find you can spend a lot of time. And I still did a few sums on this because I looked at what it cost to send the average email. And if it's like 5 minutes, 12th of an hour, 12th of your hourly rate, it soon starts clocking up. It can be $2 or £2 an email before you know it. And it's worth bearing that in mind. So I think if you are going for bespoke work, it's worth considering whether there's options for having a simplified approach where there's like a pro forma to get agreement quickly on what you want to make. If you're going for batch production, then obviously it's not so much of an issue because you're just going to make 20 of the item and then try and sell it. So the other thing I'd say is I enjoy doing one-off bespoke, or certainly did enjoy it a lot when I was learning, because you could pick up a lot of skills trying different things, and it's like an investment in your own self in a way, because you try these different things and get that experience. I tend to shy off it nowadays because I find I enjoy working in small batches, and I can be very much more productive, because when you're making 20 of an item, you're getting quicker and faster. What I didn't appreciate was you also get a lot more accurate. So just, if you're a blacksmith banging out ram's head pokers, if you make, 5, 10 in a batch or whatever, obviously there's a certain amount of like muscle memory there, and remembering your heats and what worked and what didn't work. But I think there's more to it than just like muscle memory, because you begin to look at the process of the making and you think, now, in the case of making pokers, if I can focus my heat in the fire, and by having a couple of fire bricks in the forge I can narrow the heat bed, and that will save me fuel, or I can get a hotter heat more quickly and get a better strike. I find it with my leather work that I'm constantly finding little ways of perfecting and getting better. I find that if I have a punch and I put a bit of wax on the end of it now and again, I can pull it out of the leather so much more easily and quickly. So you get all these little tiny refinements creeping in with batch production, because it's something you're doing repeatedly and you're sort of thinking, oh no, must be a better way of doing that. So I like batch because you can get the production, you can make quite a few items, you get the quality up, and because you're doing it a lot, you find better ways of doing it. But it's personal, and there are a lot of people who do their craft by bespoke, and by commission, and do very well on it. And equally, there are a lot of people doing small batch production. But it is something I think you need to think about early on, because it will affect your marketing, it will affect how you commission what you want. It will affect your investment in your customer. Yeah, there's so many things that hinge on what you're making on those sorts of bases. So that's probably enough from me at the moment on those two areas. But yes, don't be put off if you haven't got skills in every area. Just get very, very good at making one or two items. And yeah, weigh up early on if you're doing bespoke sort of one-offs or whether you're doing small batch production. And I mentioned other things in the guide which I think will help if you're trying to work out what to make, including considering the profitability, what your competitors are doing, how your market is segmented, and doing a bit of market research to see where you would fit in the market segmentation and things like that. So that's all in the guide. It's fairly brief, but it's there all as good signposts. And I'll pop a link, as I say, down below for the guide, and all the proceeds go to charity. I'll cover some other topic in the next video related to setting up the craft business. And please, make sure you subscribe and you won't miss out on it. And if there's particular things you want me to cover, pop them in the comments below and I'll try and add those in as well. Okay then, thanks very much. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.